Salam everyone. Hello, welcome to the Yoga Sutras, Breaking the Alliance of Karma. That's going to be the title for today. The section from 2.12, I think we'll get to all the way to 2.25, which means that in the next video we're going to go straight into the Eightfold Path, the 8 steps of the Ashtanga Yoga, what is more commonly associated with the Yoga Sutras. When somebody thinks about the Yoga Sutras, we often think about those 8 steps. And that's very exciting. It's coming next video. And I've been looking forward to that because that was my main motivation to go into the Yoga Sutras, to get there and then go deeper into that. So today we're going to do a preparation for that. The last week we had a video. The week before the last we were talking about Kriya Yoga. Last week we were talking about the 5 kleshas. Today we're going to talk about karma, the seed, and the sin. So let's go with 2.12 straight away. Let's go. Let's read it from here. Okay. So breaking the alliance of karma. 2.12 to 2.25. Let's see. Latent impressions that are colored, karmashaya, result from other actions, karmas, that were brought about by colorings. Kleshas, remember kleshas were also another word for suffering. It could be like coloring or suffering. And become active and experienced in a current life or a future life. Well, it's just, let's take a look at this book as well. This womb of karmas, the actions and reactions, has its root in these obstacles, and the karmas being experiences in the seen, in the present, or in the unseen births. So the present or the future. Basically what he's saying is that these kleshas, we have been talking about these kleshas, which, if you remember, they start from ignorance, from avidya, and then there's the ego and the things that we like and we dislike, and the ones that we like we get attached to, and the ones we dislike we feel aversion towards them, and if we get attached to something then we are afraid of losing it, and that creates an anxiety and other symptoms. Well, those are the kleshas, those are the colorings of the mind that are going to create some suffering. And what this is saying is that out of these kleshas, basically everything out of ignorance, the actions that we do in life, those create karma. And that karma is going to manifest either in this life, it's going to come back this life, or it's going to come back on future lives. So it's basically describing a little bit of what karma is about, what does it do. We've talked about karma extensively in this channel already, so I don't feel the need to go deeper into that. If you wish, we could explore it a bit deeper, but at the moment I don't think there is a need. Patanjali utilizes this word, what is it? Karmashaya. Bueno, here, karmasaya. This is like a reservoir of karmas. Let me focus this a little bit better. Yeah. It's like a storehouse of karmas, yeah, karmashaya. And within this karmashaya, there is every individual karma that hasn't developed and hasn't manifested yet. That's what we call the samskaras. So every one of those little seeds, I call them seeds because I like the connection between seeds and sam, like when we were talking about samadhi and the connection between samadhi and seed, and sam, like semilla in Spanish. So these samskaras, the seeds of karma that have not manifested, are stored in this karmashaya. Okay. Fine, it's a pretty simple sutra so far. And you will remember that these individual samskaras, they are all in this karmashaya, the storehouse of karmas, you cannot deal with them directly. So as they come in manifest, you may remember this from previous sutras, as they are coming to manifest, then we can deal with the coloring that is already associated to those, and through meditation, we clean the coloring and we let them not affect us in a way that we create more karma. For example, that meditating or doing yoga, and that stops creating more karma, because otherwise, when the seed of karma awakens, we have an internal reaction, and that reaction creates consequences, which means that we act on the world impulsively and we create more karma, and maybe, out of one seed of karma, we create 3 more. So the alternative is that as the seed of karma is manifesting, we apply our meditative mind and we neutralize the coloring, and the karma is cleared. So it stops bothering us. So that's one possibility. Now let's continue with 2.13. Let's take a look. So 2.13, as long as those colorings, kleshas, remains at the root, three consequences are produced: birth, span of life, and experiences in that life. Okay, let's read the other translation as well. Today we're going to be looking at both of these books. With existence of the root, there will be fruits also, namely the births of different species of life, their lifespans, and experiences. So it's just saying, it's explaining how karma works. And it's saying, well, because of these kleshas, there's a consequence. The consequence is that as long as you have karmas stored in this storehouse, these samskaras, you're going to have to take life. That's the first consequence. And if you take life, whenever you take life, the moment that you incarnate into this new life, then that's also going to be determined by this law, the law of karma, and this idea that there is three consequences to having kleshas. So the first one is you take life. Second one is how you're going to be taking life. And that means where are you born in the planet, which family is going to be more resonant with your karma, your individual karma, because the family already has a family karma. So you're going to find a family that resonates with your karma, so you can work out the things that you have to work out, and you can learn the lessons that you need to learn. And also how much lifetime you're going to have. So there is a number of, we call it prenatal prana, so a quantity of energy that is associated to you in that life. And that's also determined by this karma. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to live 75 years, period. That's it, because it's, that's what you have determined. No, you have a number of prana, an amount of prana, let's say, and depending on how you decide to act in the world, the decisions that you make and the actions that you do, you will utilize that prana more efficiently or less efficiently, and therefore reducing your lifespan. So, but the quantity of that prana and where are you located, that's determined by this aspect of the kleshas. So remember, there is three consequences of having the kleshas, these colorings of thoughts. The first one is that we take life. Second one is the context in which we take life. And the third one is experiences. We read that right now in the book, yeah? Species of life, their lifespan, and experiences. So experiences, it means that as we are progressing within one life, the experiences that we have are going to be determined by this karma that we have stored. So the seeds of karma, these samskaras, are going to wake up and they're going to manifest as experiences that we have. Very simple stuff. Patanjali is just describing how karma works and how it is working in relationship to kleshas, which was the main topic of last week's video. So let's go on. Let's continue. No, let's go with this one first. 2.14. Well, because of having the nature of merits or demerits, virtue and vices, these three consequences, birth, span of life, and experiences, may be experienced as either pleasure or pain. Pleasure or pain. Okay. Let me check. Is it worth reading this one? It's much simpler translation here. The karmas bear fruits of pleasure and pain caused by merit and demerit. Well, he's just explaining the law of karma. He's saying, well, remember, karma is not just bad karma. There's good karma and there's bad karma. But actually, that's like a simplification of the concept. We utilize those words, good karma and bad karma, a little bit, loosely. It's saying that some karma is going to cause pleasure and some karma is going to cause pain. So he doesn't utilize these words good and bad. The kind of judgment is not in effect here. It's just saying, look, if you do something that has merit, you're going to accumulate a karma that is going to cause some sort of pleasure. If you do something that has no merit, that's going to plant the seed of karma that's going to create some pain. So merit and demerit, that's going to, he calls it punya, is it? Yeah, punya and apunya, yeah. These are the terms punya and apunya, merit and demerit, are going to be the conditions for that seed of karma to manifest later as halada or paritapa. These are very unusual words. I never remember them. I just know they are here, but I never see them again. So pleasure and pain. Yeah, normally we talk about duk and sukh, but these are just pleasure and pain. So there is karma. Karma makes us come back to life. The karma determines the kind of life that we're going to have, and the lifespan and the experiences, and those experiences can be pleasurable or it can be painful. And the pleasure and the pain will depend on if the action that created the karma was with merit or with demerit. Basically like virtues or vices. You can see it like that, like a virtuous action or a vice action. Now, yoga here, we will see later on as we move into the 8 steps of the Ashtanga path, that we will go into the yamas and the niyamas, and we have to think of it that this way. When we talk about yamas and niyamas, it's not so much as a moral code. We will go into that more in detail when we get there. But if we start making virtuous actions, first of all, we start avoiding painful experiences. That's already a first good consequence. So, if any karma has to come, at least let it be a good karma. I'm using loose language now, rather than bad karma. But eventually what's going to happen is that the more you get aligned with a dharmic path, the more you are aligned with dharma, you slowly stop creating karma. And so, first of all, as you become more aligned with these yamas and niyamas, you will stop creating bad karma, let's say, using loose language. But eventually what happens is that as you get aligned with a full dharmic path, you stop creating karma altogether. So this concept of merit and demerit, and I associate it with the virtues and the vices. There is this video that I did some long time ago now about the 10 spiritual virtues and the 10 spiritual vices. Actually, it was a whole course on the Mool Mantra. You can find it in the channel if you wish. And every video was one virtue and one vice. So like humility, humiliation, things like that. Now, if you start developing humility, and in contrast with feeling humiliated by your attitude and your way of seeing the world, if you develop humility, first of all, stop creating the painful karmas, and as you get more aligned and you get in line with Dharma, then that becomes a virtue that you can incarnate in yourself, and you stop creating karma altogether. I'm just giving a little bit of more description of what this means about this merit and these demerits. Let's continue. 2.15. We're going pretty fast today. We have quite a few of sutras to cover. Okay. And now this is a bit different from what I just said. Pay attention. Look, it says, a wise, discriminating person, discriminating is a lovely word, is viveka. And if you are in the world of yoga, I'm sure you've heard of Swami Vivekananda, who was one of the main figures who brought yoga to the West, particularly to the US. So his name, Vivekananda, would be Viveka. Viveka is the discriminating person. So a wise discriminating person sees all worldly experiences as painful because of reasoning that all these experiences lead to more consequences like anxiety and deep habits, samskaras, as well as acting in opposition to the natural qualities. I will explain. Let me read the other translation. To one of discrimination, everything is painful indeed due to its consequences, the anxiety and the fear over losing what is gained, the resulting impressions left in the mind to create renewed cravings, and the constant conflict among the three gunas, which control the mind. Oh yes, by the way, because if you look at the Sanskrit, it mentions the gunas. Today we're going to have to talk a little bit about these gunas. We will talk in more detail with these gunas. What is this saying? Well, if there is going to be, again, loose language, good karma, okay, meaning karma which creates pleasure, initially you may think, oh, that's nice. I want that. I want more pleasure in my life. So let me find good karma. Let me do good things to have good karma. But actually, the discriminating one, the wise one, will recognize that even pleasurable experiences and a pleasurable life, remember life, lifespan experiences, yeah? A pleasurable life and experiences is going to create things that we crave. Yeah? You like something, you enjoy something, well, a part of you is going to want more of that. And we're going to get attached to that. Remember, attachment was one of the traps, yeah? And so the more we enjoy these pleasures, the more we crave them, the more we get attached to them, and the more we are afraid, fear of losing them, and anxiety for not being able to get them. Anxiety and fear, they are connected to this concept that there is something pleasurable and we want to get that pleasurable thing. So, and those fear, anxiety, and cravings, these are all negative experiences. So something pleasurable, it's pleasurable for the moment, but eventually it's going to become some negative experience of anxiety and fear and attachment and cravings and addictions and all those not so wonderful things. So the discriminating person, Viveka, the one who has Viveka, he or she is going to see the consequence of the actions and how if I enjoy to these pleasures and I create more good karma, I'm going to be in a worse position later on. Not worse position, but equally bad, let's say. So creating this pleasurable karma or painful karma, at the end is all the same. It's all painful because the consequence is going to be pain. You have to look far, but you're going to see that at the end, it just creates more pain, even the experiences that cause pleasure. And now, with this Viveka, this comes a challenge because this is the tricky point that some yogis are going to say, well, then I renounce all sort of pleasurable and painful experiences. And it may look like a non-attachment, but it could be like a suppression. And I'm going to suppress all my needs and my desires and my cravings so that I don't enjoy them, so that I don't get attached to them. And now that suppression, that's also karmic. So if you try to suppress all these needs and these cravings and so on, all these pleasures that come, you are, by suppressing them, that's also an action. Yeah? Like the no action, it's also an action in some ways. And then you are creating a different kind of karma. The karma of punishing yourself and not accepting your own nature. So that's a paradox, because if you try to go the ascetic path of I will not indulge in this, I will not eat, I will not have these pleasures that the body needs, just so I don't get attached to them. Well, that's not healthy. It's healthy if you receive the things as they come, and even if they are pleasurable, you can let them go, right? With no attachment. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's the simple concept, yeah? Rather than suppressing all this part of myself, and this, for example, is brahmacharya, the concept of brahmacharya, right? Like some people will take it like becoming, how do you say that? Someone who doesn't have sexual relationships, therefore you don't have a partner and you are isolated and you spend your life alone. Or you can go into an ashram and be with others, but you don't have a partner for life. And if you feel all these needs from the body wants to reproduce itself. That's part of our biology. That's how we have survived as a species. I'm going to suppress that. Well, that's the path, the ascetic path, the path of the householder says, well, can you honor the body that you have, accept the needs that the body has, and accept that this is part of yourself and that sexuality is part of our nature, and allow it to manifest as well in a healthy way, which is always not so easy, and find healthy sexual relationships that you can enjoy in the moment that is happening, but also letting it go. So you don't get attached to the moment of the pleasure, but you can experience it as part of life and let it go. So this is much more challenging than actually suppressing it altogether. But suppressing it altogether creates karma as well. So hopefully that concept is clear. And we can apply that viveka, that discernment, and see, well, if I get attached to this, it's going to create suffering. But if I suppress it, it's also going to create karma. So can I just allow it and not get attached to that? That would be my understanding of the 2.15. And, okay, where is, here. 2.16. Because the worldly experiences are seen as painful, it is the pain which is yet to come that is to be avoided and discarded. So the pain that is to come, the pain that is to come, it means the karmas that have not yet manifested. Let me put this a bit higher. Is there something else? No. Yeah, okay. So these two are going to be together. The pain that is yet to come means the karmas that haven't manifested. That means those who are in the storehouse of karma, the samskaras. Now, those which haven't manifested yet, that they are in the deepest of the subconscious, you will remember that there were some levels of samadhi where we create an impression so deep that we can like burn the seeds. We mentioned this, burning the seeds of the karma, or we could say removing the coloring of it so it doesn't have an effect on us. Removing the klishta, making it aklishta. Let's say 2.17 because they are connected. The uniting of the seer with the sin is the cause or connection to be avoided. The united of the seer with the sin is the cause or the connection to be avoided. So this is saying that it is actually here that it starts. It starts with the seer united with the sin. You will remember when we started with this whole path with the Yoga Sutras, in the very first sutras, when it was, let me read the very, very first ones. Now the exposition of yoga. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha, the restriction of the modifications of the mind stuff, so the restraint or the slowness and softness of the chitta vrittis, that's what is yoga. And then the seer abides in his own nature. At other times, the self or the seer assumes the forms of the mental modifications. And the mind, what is the mind observing? Does it say here? And then here is where it says that the 5 kind of vrittis can be klishta or aklishta. So they can be colored or not colored. Now we are talking exactly about the colorings and how to deal with the colorings, but remember these very first lines because it says, the end of yoga, the objective of yoga is to get to the place where the chitta vrittis calm down, all this movement, this mind, the consciousness distracted with what the mind is saying, all these waves calm down, and then the seer abides in his own nature. That means that the seer, the consciousness, turns back towards its own nature. Its own nature is being conscious. So we become conscious of who we are, the self, the Atman, the soul, if you wish. There's different words that we can use synonymously. The self, the Atman, the consciousness. So in the objective of yoga will be to get there, when the self resides and rests in the consciousness of Purusha. That's another word we can use as synonymous. When we are not here, so not at the end of yoga, but normally, the seer is captured by what the mind is doing. The mind, the chitta vrittis are observing the world out there. And we talked about this, out through the senses, looking at the world and getting trapped there. And enjoying or suffering, pleasure and pain of the experiences that we receive through these 5 senses. Because the senses is the things that we have the experience with. So now, coming back to this chapter, 2.16, 2.17, is telling us, well, all this pain and pleasure, actually pain, because even the pleasure, the one who discriminates in the long term can see that this is also painful. All that is caused by the seer being captured by the scene, observing the scene. So the observer, that's the self, the Purusha, is captured by the thing that it's observing, is united with the thing that it's observing. And that's another word that is interesting, united, because we know that the word yoga means unite. And funny that when we start this path, we start united. But what is the union? Is the union between the seer and the seen, the union between Purusha and Prakriti. Prakriti is the creation, the objects in the material existence. So the spirit has become trapped into the material existence, and we are yoga with it. We are united with that. And we have to distance ourselves from that to find a different kind of union, actually union within its own nature. The self has to abide in its own nature. So this is the path that is describing. And so the union of the seer and the seen is what causes pain. And when we feel separate, how is that? 1 second. Is that the 2.17, I think? I had some notes, but I think it's for the 2.17. The uniting of the seer and the seen is the cause of or connection to be avoided. Okay, so we want to avoid the seer being captured by the seen. This is what we want to avoid. And the idea is that the moment that we are captured, there is all this klishta, this coloring. All right. I think I feel like I'm going to repeat myself if I go on. So I'll go on to the next. 2.18. The objects where we focus, and now we are going to, Patanjali tells us about the seer and the seen. The following was that two sutras is going to be about the seen, what we focus on. And the following sutras will be about the seer. So first about the seen, what we see, what we look. Not sins, but maybe as well. The objects, or knowables, are by their nature illumination or sentience, activity or mutability, inertia or stasis. They consist of the elements and the power of the senses and exist for the purpose of experiencing the world and for liberation or enlightenment. Now, this today, I think this is the most important sutra for today. I'm going to go very slowly with this one, but before that, I'm going to read the other translation, see if it brings some other understanding. The seeing is of the nature of the gunas, illumination, activity, and inertia, and consists of the elements and sense organs, whose purpose is to provide both experiences and liberation to the Purusha. Okay? I feel like I want to see if there is any other translation from the big book. Let's check big book. Who doesn't fit on the screen? Let's see, 2.18. We've read this one and this one. Let's check Vivekananda with his, oh my goodness, it's so big, this book. It's hard to get it on the screen. The scene, which is composed of elements and organs and characterized by illumination, action, and inertia, is for the purpose of experience and release of the seer. Actually, he's already pointing out to another sutra that comes later on. Let's read here. The world is the play of the gunas, the universal energies of light, motion, and mass. They take form as the elements and the senses. The purpose of the world is to provide us with experience and thus lead us to liberation. He is also going into the purpose of this, which I believe it comes in the next sutra. Let me check. Oh, it comes in a few sutras later on. All right, let's look at this slowly. Let's look at it slowly. Okay, let's read it from this book. This book is too big. Let's make it from here. The scene is of the nature of the gunas, illumination, activity, and inertia. Let's just stay with this for a moment. The scene is the prakriti. Now I'm going to need another diagram for this, and we already have a diagram that describes this really well. So let me see if I can get it. Let me see if I have it here. There we are. It's the diagram of cosmic manifestation, a diagram that we already explored in the course on the mind, I think it was. And when we were talking about this is the Samkhya philosophy, which is expounding the ideas from Patanjali and is describing two things at the same time. One is how the universe is created, from subtle to gross, how Purusha is trapped into Prakriti. And on another way, the very same drawing describes a map for us, the consciousness, as we are meditating the path that we have to go. And that's a really incredible diagram. If you wish to explore more, I recommend to go watch that video because we go into a lot of depth. But today's sutra is super important because I believe that this 2.18, this sutra, is the origin of this map. I think this is where the very basic elements that become this map start. So Patanjali says, look, prakasha, kriya, sthiti. And this is illumination, activity, or inertia. Inertia would be tamas, what later would be, when we talk about the gunas, we talk about tamas. Kriya in this case means activity, which is rajas, and prakasha, illumination, is associated to the more pure sattvic state. So sattvic, rajic, and tamasic. Those three are the three aspects of the gunas. Here you have the T, the S, and the R. Yeah? Sattvic, tamasic, and rajasic. So what this is saying is, if you remember this diagram, this is Purusha on the top level, and then as soon as we go down into the manifestation, and we go down from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, Yin, Yang, or Shakti, Shiva, into the gunas, into the elements, yeah, the tattvas, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And as we go down, Patanjali is telling us, well, Prakriti takes the form of this. Prakriti is the object, the seer. Yeah, if we wanted, we could say this is the seer, and this is the seen. Yeah, everything that is below is the seen. This above here is the seer, the one who is observing, the consciousness. And he's saying, look, the seen. I mentioned that now we were going to talk about the seen. Well, the seen is composed of these different states of the gunas, which are sattvic, tamasic, and rajasic. He calls it illumination, activity, and inertia. So the nature of the seen is of the nature of the gunas. So the gunas is part of the nature of these three concepts and consists of the elements and the sense organs, whose purpose is to provide both experiences and liberation to the Purusha. Okay. And I mentioned that this concept, the purpose, is already pointing to something that comes later. But before we go into purpose, let's mention it. Consists of the elements and sense organs. So as Samkhya develops this idea, is saying, look, this is more subtle, this is more gross. We don't really perceive this. This is what we can perceive. So we have to get down to this level, the level of the five senses, five elements, the tattvas, that through our five senses, the indriyas, is where we can perceive and exert some sort of influence into the world. So that's the Gyan Indriyas and the Karma Indriyas. There's the 10 aspects of our input-output into the world. So this is our relationship with the external world. This is what we can see, what we can smell. Here are the Indriyas. Yeah? We can taste, we can touch, we can hear. So this is what we would be seeing, that we would be calling the scene, the scene, the object of our awareness. So the scene, these 5 elements and the qualities of the 3 gunas. So this prakriti, all this, as we go gross, is how. Why is it there? Well, the purpose of it is to provide experiences and the liberation to the Purusha. And we will see now in a few minutes when we go into the other sutras, he's saying that this is necessary. Purusha has to go down here. It has to be down into the senses. Without the senses, without this incarnation, without gunas and the elements and the senses, we would not be able to have experiences. And experiences is one of the 3 qualities that are determined by this karma. And they are there so that we can experience the world, and through that experience we can learn the lessons we have to learn and let go of the attachment and let go of the suffering and the fear and the anxiety and all those things that the viveka, the one who has discrimination, notices that they are all pain. They are all suffering. In a way, it's kind of what Buddha says. There is a suffering in the world. This is how it operates. This is how you can get rid of. And this is, Patanjali is more or less saying the same. Look, there is a suffering, the klishta, and the suffering, all suffering comes because the seer is focused on the sin. It does this through the 5 elements and the 5 senses, and they have the qualities of the gunas. This is what he's saying. All right? That was a very important sutra. If there is something that you need to ask, you feel free to ask. If you're online or if you are watching this video, then you can write in the comments whatever questions and we can explore them a bit better. Very important. Sutra 2.18. 2.19, there says, there are 4 states of the gunas, which are diversified, specialized or particularized, undiversified, undifferentiated, or differentiated. So we can say this, let's call them undiversified. That would be something, let me see, what are the names? Vishesha, here. Vishesha, Avishesha, Avishesha, Lingamatra, and Alingani. Diversified, which is, I use generally specialized or concrete, something specific, something particular. Avishesha is something that is not particular, so non-specific. Let me try to give an example. This is too confusing. When we look at it like this, it's like confusing, but he's talking about the gunas, the 4 states of the elements, gunas, elements with the gunas. Let's give an example with the elements, because with the gunas it's harder to understand. With the gunas, what happens is the higher we go into this diagram, the more difficult it is to perceive, because these are the senses that we have. So let's take an example with the earth, for example. And we can say there is 4 qualities to this element that it can come. One is, it can be non-specific. Let's say I'm just saying rocks. I'm not saying specific, any kind of rock. That could be rocks, or a specific kind, like a particular kind of rocks, like pebbles in the sea, in the beach, like the little pebbles that are in the beach. Well, those are Vishesha and Avishesha. The Avishesha would be the general ones, like all rocks, and Vishesha would be some specific rocks, like pebbles in the beach. And then there's the Lingamatra and Alingani. One is the undifferentiated Alingani, and that would be like, you could say, well, all pebbles, any pebble, right? You could tell to someone, okay, just bring me a pebble, some pebbles, any pebble. It doesn't have any difference. Or Lingamatra would be a particular pebble, that one that has this particular shape, and I've seen it before. It has a little black dot on the side, and there is this little color on the side, and you have to look for that particular pebble. And it's just this. So the elements, whatever we perceive, they can be particular or not particular. It can be undifferentiated or differentiated. Just a little example, but I think it will help. Sometimes Patanjali will do this. These are different kinds of elements that you can find. I'm not sure whether it's worth going deeper into this. But this is describing the scene, what we are looking at. And now he's going to move on from this, and he's going to go into the seer, the one who is looking at these all elements. And let's look at this through 2.20. Now 2.20 is going to go into the seer. There we go. So, seer is but the force of seeing itself, appearing to see or experience that which is presented as a cognitive principle. Let me just point out, when we are talking about seer and seeing, we're not just saying the eyes, we're not just looking, okay? It's like the five senses. It's talking about consciousness. So the seer is the one who has this, let me put it again, the force or the power of seeing itself. Yeah, the power of seeing. Appearing to see or experience that which is presented as a cognitive principle. It just says like a thought, something that we are thinking. Now this is coming back again to the one sutra we read before. You will remember 1.4, all the way back. Oh wait, this is not 1.4, that's 2.4. 1.4. At other times, okay, so 1.3, then the seer, the self, abides in his own nature, but when he's not, the self appears to assume the forms of the mental modifications. And I did this little drawing to represent when we are looking ourselves, the consciousness, into this lake. Yeah, the surface of the lake has ripples, chittavrittis, and when we look, rather than seeing the face as it is, we see the ripples, and that distorts our perception. And so as we are looking at an object, which can be specific or unspecific or defined, particular, all that, when we are looking at any object, the ripples are going to be also affecting it. And we are going to be like, oh, I'm looking at, let's say, a pebble. Yeah, I'm looking at, I have this little, not a pebble, but it will do. This bead. Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at the bead. Well, at this moment that I'm doing this act, the seer becomes focused on the scene. The power of the seeing of the seer is focused on the seeing. It's looking through the mind. Yeah. .21. The essence or nature of the knowable object exists only to serve as the objective field for pure consciousness. The essence or nature of the knowable objects exists only to serve as the objective field for pure consciousness. Let's read another translation. That's 21. Let's read the 20 as well. We didn't read this one. The seer is nothing but the power of seeing, which, although pure, appears to see through the mind. Yeah, like looking at the bead. And the seeing exists only for the sake of the seer. What does this mean? The seer and the seeing, remember, this is the Purusha and the Prakriti saying, look, everything that is here, Prakriti, exists so that the Purusha can look at it. Purusha can utilize these senses, yeah, and have an access to these elements, gross elements, this thing that is going to make us believe that we are separate, Maya, and we're going to have an experience that we feel alone and separated from the world and so on. Well, all those experiences are possible, and they are there through Prakriti just because it needs to give an opportunity for Purusha to experience its power, the power of seeing. So Purusha can see, can have, let's say, I'm just using seeing, remember, this is consciousness, right? But for consciousness to express what it can do, the power of being aware of something, there has to be this something. So Prakriti exists so that Purusha can focus its awareness on something. Purusha is not the one who is experiencing though. It is the mind who is experiencing through the five senses, and Purusha is observing what the mind is going through. Okay, so Purusha is not necessarily the one who is experiencing all this, but Purusha, what it needs to experience is to notice that it is being aware of this. First, through the mind, it's aware of the objects. And it's aware of the experience that the mind is having through the objects. And through many years and many lifetimes, you notice, some experiences are painful, some are pleasurable. At the end, you know what? They all cause pain in some way, because even the pleasurable, you get addicted to them, and you get cravings and so on and so forth, and the fear and anxiety. And he's noticing all these things that are happening in the mind, and he's noticing it. And eventually he has to get to a point where he says, well, look at everything that is happening. And at some point he's like, that situation brought pain, that one pleasure, that one I get addicted to, that one I'm afraid to lose that one. I am feeling anxiety because of this could happen. And you notice all these things. You are becoming aware of this and that experience and that other experience. And at some point, you hopefully become aware of what is in common with all these things. Well, the one thing in common is that I am perceiving all that. Right? It's not that thing itself is not important. Important is that I am perceiving that thing. And then the moment that can happen, it's like awareness can turn towards itself. Remember, like the self can abide in his own nature. And what is the nature of the self? Consciousness, meaning becoming aware of. So first, you have to get lost in the senses. You have to go out into the world. We need the ego and feel separate and go through Maya and experience the pain and all those experiences, so that at some point we can say, whoa, look, all this that is happening, I'm noticing that. And who is the one? The one who is noticing that. And first you go up one step to the mind. Oh, look at the mind. How is it the mind experiencing that? Oh, through the senses. Okay. So from the objects, you go to the senses. And so what is the effect of the senses? Oh, that's disturbing my thoughts. Oh, then you go up one step into the thoughts. And then as you observe the thoughts, like, wait, how is it I'm experiencing the thoughts? Well, who is that I? It's not the mind. Oh, the consciousness. And then you go back up and out into the consciousness. So Patanjali is telling us all this process is necessary for Purusha to turn back towards itself and notice, I am the self. Otherwise, it doesn't know what it's aware of. So we have to do this whole path. You see? Uh, 2.23 Having an alliance or relationship between objects and the self is the necessary means by which there can subsequently be realization of the true nature of those objects by that very self. Yeah, this is what I was just saying. If there was no alliance between the seer and the seen, there would be no journey of self-discovery. So we need to get lost in the game, in this lila, the play that we are playing in the universe with this life and death and coming back to life and all the experiences, the pleasure, the pain, and all that is necessary so that subsequently the realization of the true nature of the objects by the very self. Okay. Avidya, or ignorance, the condition of ignoring, is the underlying cause that allows this alliance to appear to exist. Remember, avidya was the first of the kleshas. So, avidya is necessary. We need that ignorance. We need the formation of the ego and all that things that gets us lost. This is a concept that sometimes we hear in yoga. Somebody who arrives to yoga and they ask, well, how can I educate my children in such a way that they don't develop that ego? And you don't even want that. You need that ego, that process of feeling differentiated and individualized and separated, and the pain and the pleasure that go with that. That's necessary part of the process, the journey of self-discovery. So the avidya is not wrong. There's nothing wrong with avidya. It's part of the process. But as soon as you notice, and as soon as you wake up and you realize this, oh, avidya is the source of all that. Now that I'm becoming aware, so I'm more into the self, now it's time to turn the tables, yeah? So avidya, the cognition of our ignorance, is the underlying cause that allows this alliance to appear to exist. And by causing a lack of avidya or ignorance, there is then an absence of the alliance, and this leads to a freedom known as the state of liberation or enlightenment to the seer. Let me read this last line, or these last lines from this book. We moved on. Did we miss the 2.22? Although destroyed for him who has attained liberation, it still exists for others, being common to them. We may have skipped this step. This is just saying, look, for the Prakriti has to exist for Purusha to wake up, but for the one who gets liberated and goes up and stops being distracted by all this doesn't mean that Prakriti ceases to exist. Excuse me. There is this idea that the world is like a dream. Yeah, this existence is like a dream. Well, if it's like a dream, it's a dream that we are all commonly sharing. So just because one soul wakes up, the dream doesn't cease to exist because we are all in this dream together. So this doesn't disappear. However, the one who reaches this certain level of samadhi where you are not out into these objects anymore, that one is not disturbed anymore. And you can see that, like, for example, somebody who is really, really focused, you're reading a book, and somebody's calling your name, you're not even noticing. You don't even notice. You're fully focused, fully concentrated on something. And then, it can cause some troubles. Some people may think that you are not paying attention, you are not listening to me, or you don't care about me because you don't listen when I'm calling you, and you're just so focused on something that is like nothing else exists. But, even if that is the experience you're having, it doesn't mean that the whole Prakriti disappears. It's just that you are having this one-pointed concentration, a quality that you're going to need, and we're going to explore that in the 8 steps in order to get to the top of this path. Remember, this is also a map of consciousness. So the map has to go to the one-pointed concentration. So as we're going up, we are less in the senses, and we don't necessarily pay attention when somebody's calling us, or if we are having some pain in the body. That it's a very common experience. You start meditating and maybe the position is not very comfortable, but if you go really into focus in the breath or focus on the mantra or something else, the gross experience of the body, which maybe is not comfortable, kind of dissipates and disappears, and the consciousness goes up from the gross to the subtle. You remember the different states of samadhi as well, from savitarka to savichara, and going from this gross towards the subtle and even higher. So this is what 2.22 was saying. And I think I may have skipped this line from the other translation. But anyway, the union of the owner, Purusha, and Prakriti causes the recognition of the nature and the powers of them both. And the cause of this union is ignorance, which we already talked about. But without this ignorance, no such union occurs. And that is the independence of the seer. So first we need that. We need the union. We need the avidya, the ignorance. We need the union of the seer and the sin, so that we wake up to the power of Purusha, which is this consciousness. And as we wake up to that, we withdraw from the gross experience, and we remove our ignorance. And without this ignorance, then there is no more sin and sin being united. There's a different union, which is the yoga with the self. The self comes to rest in its own nature. The self is the seer, is the Atman, is the consciousness. So there we go. That is how We do the path from being captured by the gross material objects, which is what creates suffering and pleasure, and through that we create karmas, and the karmas perpetuate the cycle. And this is how we deal with the karmas. And on next video, we're going to go into, okay, so how do we go up this path? How do we climb up? How do we make this journey? And that's the Eightfold Path. And that's really exciting. That's really, really nice. I hope you don't miss that video. That's going to come up next week. And yeah, I've been looking forward to starting the Eightfold Path. And we're going to explore every step along the way and the whole overarching idea of how we go up there. Well, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to drop a like. That's very useful for the channel. Subscribe if you didn't. Share it with others. Thank you everyone for subscribing and liking and sharing, and all the members of the channel. I deeply appreciate. And let's continue in contact next week with Yoga Sutras, this Thursday, with something I still don't know what will we do. Thursday is a free day. So if you have any suggestion of what would you like to explore in one of these free Thursdays that I open to the Sangha to ask me questions, just suggest a topic and I will do a video on that if I can. If I need to prepare it, I may wait a few weeks, but I always end up answering every question that is given to me. So I always like to explore whatever is interesting to you, and we create this community. Thank you very much. Until next time, Sanam.